Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast, episode 281. I'm Steve Smith, along with our co-host Dave Anderson. Dave's coming to us from Dallas, and I'm in Ave Maria, Florida. Dave, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Happy to be here. Happy New Year. It's but when this comes out, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, 2026. Time is ticking. Time is ticking. I have one request. We get this thing rolling.
Yep.
I tell juniors all the time I don't take requests. All those great mind writers. No complaints, no excuses. The late Stephen Covey, his book was really well read. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Has to go through this. Be proactive. I love this number 2. Begin with the end in mind. We certainly apply that to what we do. Put first things first. Number 4, think win-win. 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Synergize and sharpen the saw. I'm liking number 2. I think when it comes down to junior development, begin with the end in mind. What comments do you have for Stephen's book?
Yeah, read it. I still use that quote constantly. Begin with the end in mind. Probably the hardest thing to do, or certainly for us to convince people to do. It's hard to see down the road for people. It's usually their first journey, and there's so much emotion when it's your own child. And I think it's very, very difficult for the parents and then the players to kind of begin with the end in mind and realize that it's just a never-ending, no point of arrival journey, that you just got to get better all the time. And, I've heard you say it before. I mean, one of the betterment of skills is really the only route to get better, whether technical skills, tactical, mental, emotional, physical. You just got to constantly better your skills.
Oh, well put. Put first things first. I never really thought about this until recently, but having grown up playing ice hockey, when you put your stick on the ice, everybody basically hangs on a hockey stick the same way. But tennis kids, you're at the mercy of your impulses and a slave to your habits. Title Monica Selish's book, Get a Grip, Get the Right Grip. There's no such thing as a perfect grip, Braden, just a grip with the least amount of adjustment. But yeah, so many kids go down the road, several years, and all the ramifications of just how they hang on to the racket. Here's another one. Think win-win. I'm always telling people winning is the curse. I know I used to say this all the time, it's not the scoreboard. You can win so many ways besides just the scoreboard. In the end, if you do everything right, you'll certainly do plenty of winning.
Yeah, I just heard a great quote as we were speaking offline about this little podcast that was done, and talking about the old Australian mentality back when they were, dominating the world, and they used to have the saying that grinners are winners. They just really encouraged people to just be fearless and, be able to go at it like that with that attitude, and then just come back the next day with a smile, and developed a really fearless mentality culturally throughout the entire continent.
The late Harry Hopman, who helped us with our tennis tech program by creating a semester internship and hiring people in the summer. He was asked about the downfall of Australian tennis. He said Australians became wealthy. You think about how many Eastern Europeans have done so well in tennis. When the Berlin Wall came down in 1989, the Soviets had really suppressed tennis because it wasn't an Olympic sport. And so many players from Eastern Europe have done so well. Just outwork people. Hungry dog hunts best. Coming back to 7 habits, why don't you comment on sharpen the saw?
Yeah, I mean, sharpen the saw to me is critical for every human being alive. I think that's really coming back. It seems like I've been home longer than a week, but arriving back in Dallas from Ave Maria a week ago. I mean, that was just a sharpening of the saw for everyone. I don't care how long any of us have been in the sports coaching it, or how long any players have been playing it. You just can't go back to the well, so to speak, or sharpen your saw on a regular basis. I mean, you have to have that mentality, lifelong learner, lifelong pursuit of acquiring a higher level of whatever it is you're trying to do. And so I think that's the curious mind that people that I've been around in different walks of life, they just have an intellectual curiosity. And I think sharpening the saw is a natural byproduct of that, and having the desire to, where I think that if you don't have that, I think people look at sharpening the saw as kind of a mundane thing that maybe they're above and beyond, but it's just the opposite.
We had a skate sharpener in our basement. One of my brothers was in business, so it was 25 cents to drop off your skates and get your skates sharpened. Sharpen the saw. I can remember being in college as a freshman and hitchhiking like 2 hours. Of course, now people don't really hitchhike, but I hitchhiked like 2 hours because I wanted a certain person on a Saturday. I said, "I'll wait all day. I want you to add a new pair of skates, and I want you to rocker the blade." And you know, that's what I think of when I think sharpen the saw. But no, the tools have to just keep getting better. You're not going to do too well if you're cutting with a dull knife. But it's all, you just always have to get better. I think the synergize, getting people to work together. But though the 7 habits of highly effective people, actually, who sent this to me, you met at the workshop we recently had, was Jerry Garcia.
Yeah, great guy.
He worked for NASA. Great guy, wife, great gal. Son's representing the USA. He's a fighter pilot with the Air Force.
Yeah, amazing guy. Great story.
So positive. Okay, let's do this. I'll read. This is amazing. Just wow, wow, wow. Jake Gregory from Utah. I know he came to work with us. I sent him to your place. Loves tennis. And some time had gone by, and he sent me life lessons learned from the GreatBase. And how he says the very top before he gets into numbering, number 1 is 10 points. It has drastically impacted my life. I'll read one and you can comment. Number 1, you have to be all in. Be the kid who sits in the front row, is fully engaged, sits on his hands. You have 2 ears and 1 mouth. Listen twice as much as you speak.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything. The hardest part when I think of that, and when somebody says you got to be all in, I think that many people perceive themselves as being all in, but they're really not. And I think that it's very important that we as coaches really, are able to teach someone what that all in looks like relative to whatever it is they're doing. But yeah, all in. I mean, you get out exactly what you put in it. And I think that when you do, I know when you get a player who is truly all in, you just can't be around that kind of person enough. It's a joy to be around them. They just they light up the whole facility. I usually call them our Navy SEAL because they're all in. Yeah. What a cool thing when you see it materialize.
I'd like to tell people, you get their attention. For our listeners, it's good for the parents to hear this with junior tennis. You're either a 1 or a 2. 1s are all in. It's not like you're a 10, a 9, an 8. You're either a 1 or a 2. And all in, when people are told what to do, should be a life-changing experience, and the passion. Actually, a girl who's been to your place, she's here. I know you got a chance to meet Adam Bohr.
Mm-hmm.
And I just love to get people going. Said this little young girl, 9 years old, who loves tennis more, you or Adam Bohr? She had looked at me and didn't know how to answer. I said, "Come on." She goes, "Me." So I asked her like 3 more times, and no, the passion quotient. Yeah, you got to go for it. Billie Jean King named her company that one time. You can't put your toe in the pool. You got to just jump all in. You got to go for it. Jake Gregory's number 2 life lesson: coaching matters, but work ethic matters more. Who wins? The person who takes guitar lessons and practices occasionally, or the person who takes no lessons but plays until their hands bleed? Obviously, the second one. Ideally, though, it's competent coaching plus a ridiculous, sickening work ethic for maximum growth. That's well put. Comes to your mind when you hear that?
Yeah, I think of the word court rat. Growing up in other sports, gym rat. I think in generations past, it was more common to see kids that were tennis rats, tennis court rats, and but I think it's more prevalent in other sports. I mean, it's becoming less and less in our sport. And I love kids that love to hit balls and love to just be around the court and love to be around the sport. And it kind of ties in with the all in. But boy, there's just no substitute for time, in your sport either. I mean, it's being around it in any capacity and watching it on TV. And, I, not to throw my grandkids in here, but I'm gonna, but, today, I took them up there and they let them play a little padel, but then they came home and nothing was live on the tennis channel outside of the Sabalenka match with, Kyrgios. So they scrolled and found the top 25 points of all the players. And I'm just amazed at how when these points flip on and they go, Fritz Mute, boom, boom, boom. So time around the sport and practice and passion and all of it, it just builds. To me, tennis is a relationship with a person, and the sport is, and you got to put in and you got to invest in that relationship, and I think that driving the time, the practice is up to us as coaches to teach and parents, and I think that the end effect is pretty astounding.
No, thanks. With the passing of Mark Spann, I spoke to Julian Krinsky, and reading Jake's notes verbatim, this is where it comes from. I was working for Julian up in Philadelphia, training his coaching staff. Tennis alone, he had one of the largest tennis camps in the United States for a long, long time. But he had met someone from Puerto Rico who played the guitar really well. And I asked him, I said, how'd you learn how to play? No lessons, but I just played and played until my hands bled. But just the way Jake's written this ridiculous, sickening work ethic for maximum growth. From Herkimer, New York, which is not a hotbed for golf, I met Wayne Levy through my brothers. In particular, one brother is a really good golfer. When you think of all-time money winners, it's hard to keep that in perspective because people make so much money now. But Wayne Levy at one time was in the top 50 money earners. And basically, he just hit plastic golf balls behind the public school in Herkimer, New York. And he went to Oswego, State University in New York. We'd get back on the hockey bus, and I'd say he's going to be in there. It'd be past midnight. We'd come back from a trip to, I remember one time going back at snowstorm, Kingston, Ontario. I go, he's going to be in there. And sure enough, he was. Past midnight, and he's just hitting golf balls. The late Steve Johnson Sr., I loved his line, tennis lets you know who you are. I just keep repeating myself. Martin St. Louis, the hockey player who was uninvited, unwanted, and then he won every trophy. It's easy to be the hardest worker. But Stevie Johnson's father, tennis will let you know who you are. Martin St. Louis, again, it's easy. Everybody can make that choice to be the first person to practice and the person doing all the extras. Number 3, this is fantastic as well. Gratitude and respect are non-negotiable. Don't take opportunities for granted that many people never get. Don't be a spoiled tennis kid. Don't mope, pout, whine, complain, or feel sorry for yourself. Never throw a match or give up, ever.
Yeah, huge things in my daily thoughts that I try to impart on kids, gratitude and respect. I think that, again, there's a lot to be said about waking up and, doing a few things to get your day going, but then spending a few minutes to just reflect on the things that are, that are in your life that you should have gratitude for. And the camp, the workshop that was just run by you in Southwest Florida, it was mentioned numerous times by the kids that tennis is a privilege, or to the kids that tennis is a privilege, and they don't thank their parents for that privilege. It seems to be culturally thought of as, just they have the right to it. They're entitled to it. And I think part of it is just youth. I mean, the Mark Twain, the problem with youth is it's wasted on the young. But I think that, respect is, self-respect, tanking a match, as you mentioned. I mean, that's to me, lack of respect for the sport, but for the person themselves. And then and if you do that while you're a part of a team, a culture of an academy that you're in, gosh, so many of these things though seem like they need to be taught around the dinner table. And sometimes it's more difficult to do that when you come from environments where you have abundance. I knew tournaments were not easy to access for my family because we weren't poor, but we didn't have money hanging on trees. And I'm thankful my dad had to look me in the eyes without hesitation and say, hey, sorry, you're not going to Burlingame, California for the 14 hard courts. We can't afford it, whether you qualified or not. It immediately taught me that things like that were incredible luxuries, not things that should just be taken for granted. But yeah, those are great words by Jake.
Yeah, we've had coaches visiting, well, they're still here from the workshop, a couple coaches, and told one coach to say, hey, and I said, this is something you could write on the bathroom wall. Just yelled out to a kid, through your body language, you're showing privilege. What we want you to do through your body language is show gratitude. And you can just tell. You can just tell through someone's body language on a tennis court. Here you go. This is one that's so true, and it's great. It made the top 10 list. You can only control two things, your attitude and your effort.
Well, yeah, I mean, what great words to live by. And, I think that it was something you emphasized nonstop back in the 80s when we were going through the program in Tyler. And I know when I came here, it was the first T-shirt that was made as part of the Brookhaven Tennis Academy. The words attitude and effort were on the back. Character counts, attitude and effort. I mean, it's two things that if you can learn to control those and just clean out all of the other things and just like really focus on attitude and effort. I mean, what a game changer in people's lives. And, eventually it can become, maintenance of it but just establishing the habits to get your attitude in check and make sure your effort's in check. And that's a lot of work. It's painful for people. I think it takes a lot of introspection and strength to be able to look inside of yourself and get them right.
Again, your attitude is your altitude. I love that. That's how high you're going to go. Number 5, there is no secret. Workers win. I'd like to tell people work begins with W, win begins with W, lazy begins with L, lose begins with L. Just to get people's attention, just to give them a knee-jerk reaction. But what Jake wrote under number 5, you are what you do when nobody is watching. Don't wait to be asked. You see something that needs to be done, do it. The key is not the will to win. Everybody has that. It's a will to prepare to win. That's important. Bobby Knight, the late Bobby Knight, basketball coach. The will to prepare and work required are often so much more than what one would think. The will to prepare. It's typical to confuse luck or talent with work ethic. The work is done in the dark, behind the curtain, finally being shown. Example, the kid who can outrun everybody else has run more miles and pushed himself more than anybody else. The kid who has a great forehand has hit countless more forehands than everybody else. Any comments on there is no secret, workers win?
Yeah, and I think, going back to, I believe, John Wooden on redefining winning, I think society kind of has to redefine it and, to combine his words with the late, great Vic Braden on becoming a gold medalist with inside of your own body, because we did all get different levels of everything. You and I got shorted when it came to the ability to sustain follicles on top of our head for any length of time. But going back to that, because I do see there are some kids that were just blessed with so many different things, athletically perhaps, or whatever it is. And they maybe haven't earned the right to it to truly win. So I think that it's very important people really define to them what winning looks like, and it really isn't always on the scoreboard. It's just a very, very different perspective, I think, when you get a true handle on what winning really is.
Yeah, to hear John Wooden's name, there's so many Woodenisms, but don't try to be better than your opponent. Your competition's in the mirror. Jim Verdick, one of our pillars. Don't you want to get better? Don't you want to be 1% better? Halfway through this, obviously, these are very good to read these. Thank you, Jake Gregory. As we go into a new year, number 6 is Program Plus. No tennis program. No tennis program an athlete is in. No university a student attends. No seminar a businessman goes to will make one extraordinary by itself. I think we need to help him a little bit with his English here, but I have to hesitate saying that. I have to go back and read it properly. No tennis program an athlete is in. No university a student attends. And no seminar a businessman goes to will make one extraordinary by itself. What separates great people is the effort, volume, and tenacity put in outside the program, typically on their own, practice. Extraordinary, doing the ordinary, the basics, an extraordinary amount of times. There's no excuse not to be the hardest worker in the room. Program Plus, what do you have to say?
That's what makes or breaks people. It's going above and beyond, exceeding expectations of the people around you, I think, that are, telling you to do this and that, and you exceed them. I think in any walk of life, I'm not necessarily the biggest Chris Everett commentator fan of her commentary on TV, but one great quote of hers is, the best players in the world do the ordinary extraordinarily well. And I think that people who achieve, their minds kind of never rest. I hate to say, players who achieve, they're always wondering if they're doing enough. They always probably feel like they're never doing enough, and so they're kind of restless in that way. And then they're not going to just accept the normal program. Boy, that's important for people going off to college, kids going off, parents have kids going off. They're going to have to, especially if they come from an environment like yours or what we have here, and they're going to have to get off on their own too, or they're just going to, maybe move horizontally at best.
Yeah, Program Plus. I always tell people that's what makes a program is what you do on your own. You got to do the extra. We have a little girl here from Chicago, 10 years old. She was referred by one of the parents of a player. She's actually been to your place. She just won the Little Mo. And so what we did is we went in the classroom and said, okay, we'll show you her very first video. And it was a stroke review. And, the little girl leading the stroke review had a number 1 ranking in the 14th. We've had so many people who have been ranked high. We don't really play the credibility game and go through what we have, the archives, the grassroots level of tennis, the marquee players. I mean, you have some kid who really, really improves, but it's not like they setting the world on fire and, winning majors. So anyway, this young girl from Chicago, we have these emergent days. She's only 10 years old and comes back the next day. I said, well, did you go online? Did you start the course, the GreatBase Initiative? And they just look at you like, are you crazy? I was here all day, but then you have to think as a communicator. I said, just go to it, log on and just watch the first clip. There's 17 clips. I think they're like 5 minutes each, and you just don't do it. Number 7, Jake has written, it's about character first. Once character's in check, learning how to hit a forehand, backhand, or serve becomes the easy part. There's a strong correlation between how you live your life outside of tennis and the type of tennis player you will become. Do the opposite of what you want to do. Do what you hate doing, but know that it'll make you grow. Do your routines, and the small things will turn your brain on. It's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's about character first. Why don't you add to that a little bit?
Yeah, I I loved years ago. I can't remember exactly when, but making a trip back up where I grew up in Minot, North Dakota, and the back of the Little Leagues. I think I've mentioned on here the back of the Little League jerseys. One year or 2 years. I don't know how long they kept it going. Every jersey from every team said character counts. I remember you telling me this when I was a young guy getting into coaching, and that if you can't teach character, you can't teach tennis. And boy, did that turn out to be an extremely true statement. They just go hand in hand. And really all of Jake's points and comments that he's making are so tied together. They're all intertwined. But the character, I love the counter to the common cliche or quote that competition, builds character. And we've always said, and you mentioned it here, is competition really just it reveals character. And then it's up to the individual to take it, and tear it apart and see what they need to build on. But yeah, I love that stuff.
Fred Shiro, the late hockey mastermind. Sport doesn't build character, it reveals character. That's a gem. Number 8, efficiency and logic matter. Play the percentages. Have a simple, proven system that is efficient. This is Braden. Let your opponent take gas and outlast them. Don't rely solely on them missing. Play aggressive percentage tennis. Pin them deep through the middle. Get the short ball, go to the net, do the math. The goal's at the net. Begin playing with the end in mind. Teach young players to go to the net early. Shortcuts that seem easier in the moment will bite you in the long run.
Yeah. I love to hear Steve Denton, who certainly has the incredible playing background, being at the top of the world on ATP and singles and doubles, and a huge mark in college coaching at the top of the game. And to hear him echo what we've said many times, where you are definitely going to have a little bit longer maturation process for a true all-court game. I think that ties in with the old Aussie, grinners are winners. When you know that going in, but you're gonna have a more complete tactical game with more options. I just feel so sorry for these kids these days, and I've been watching streams throughout most of the day down at Winter Nationals in Orlando with some players. I feel so sorry for them that they've been robbed from the great sport of doubles. They are just it's been just ripped out of their hands in the last decade plus in tennis, and I've always just felt doubles is such a pure way to help build it, let alone the team aspect. But yeah, you just got the meal's got to be in the oven a little bit longer, and if you accept that, I think you're going to go ahead and take the good risk. You're gonna know what's going to come. You just got to stay the course.
Oh, you said it so well. It's powerful. Yeah, and if you become a better doubles player, you become a better singles player, and vice versa. No, it is playing for the 2-inch trophy. But, 2 levels of ignorance. People don't know, they don't know. Yeah, you need 2 things to be a serve and volley. You need to serve and a volley. If you don't serve volley, you don't serve volley. Just over and over again. But, how many times does somebody have to hear that message? But they want to win. I've been to, the little kid tournaments, and, I'm going to go hide behind a tree just so people don't know I'm there. Pull the hoodie up, and you watch these kids that you've been teaching to play doubles, and they're playing the wrong way. It's like, what are you doing? Because we go information, ideas, and insights equal instincts. Yeah, if you don't go, you don't go. It's really sad. And it's amazing, like with the Bryan brothers, 155 tournaments or whatever, how many. I'm not spot on with that, but go with the best and forget the rest. Number 9, it's not about you. I have great respect for the members of the Mormon faith, the Church of Latter-day Saints. Jake is a Mormon. It's not about you. Don't be selfish. Pay it forward. Teaching is the highest form of learning retention. Benefits go both ways. I found that serving and helping others brings fulfillment. Go ahead. It's not about you.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of goes against human nature a little bit. We all have a little bit of that that feeling. It is about us only. And I think the sooner that's kind of knocked out of people and they discover the beauty of giving, you can still really pursue greatness manage to pull others along the way with you, and you certainly get there further. You get there faster, all alone, but you can go further, and the journey's a lot better when you take a few others with you. I think that junior tennis players, I mean, gosh, what a great thing if it would be mandatory in the USTA, for these kids to get into a level one instead of this massive accumulation of points that's taking kids from, Timbuktu to all over the country, and they're getting on all these airplanes. If they had to log in actual hours of, I hate to say community service, but mentorship and things like that, and there were certain prereqs to get into these big tournaments to make sure we're nurturing the sport in the right way, because our sport needs a lot of fertilizer right now and a lot of weeds pulled out. That would be, that's how we have to think. And I think parents are critical in that. I think coaches are too. But I think parents, without the parents being on board with that, it's very tough to get it instilled.
Yeah, don't be a tennis snob. One of the best ways to work with your footwork is to hit with anybody and everybody, and put the ball on a dime. Set it right up for the player. And a young player just yesterday, just hit tabletop. Just line your forehand up like a volley. Just add the follow through. Do the same thing on the backhand side. In a few days, you're going to be playing somebody with a big serve. You got to prepare for that. But just, because don't hit a kicking topspin ground stroke to someone who's just starting out. Just set them up. But, I think the parents make a big mistake on who's my child hitting with. And I've said this many times on this podcast. I thought that was something for the mafia, paid hit. Some kids at 10 on the UTR, and he's being paid to hit with someone who's a 7 on the UTR. It's so sad. Number 10, be sharp, consistent, and concise, and align yourself with a coach who embodies the same standards. Dick Brady was always saying, never lower your standards. You set the path, and have people go up to your level, to your standard. You can't. How's it go? You can't. You don't want to just go along to get along. A few more things he's written here. A good tennis player is consistent with inputs. A great tennis player is consistent with ridiculous inputs all the time. The cultivation and active winning is found in practice. The trophy ceremony is simply where you pick up the trophy. Fantastic coach will be honest, will call you out when you act out, will help you excel in a sport and help translate those skills directly into character for the rest of your life. Won't accept BS, won't feed your fairy dust or tell you what you want to hear just to collect a paycheck, which is the easy way out. Unfortunately, far too common. This decelerates growth tremendously. If you can't accept these harsh truths, a different coaching method may be something you'll want to consider. You may also find it difficult to excel in tennis and life, often finding yourself playing the victim role and blaming your external factors or lack of success. He writes as a bonus, it's a game, relax, take a deep breath. It's not life or death. Work your tail off, show your gratitude through your effort, and have fun. Who can argue with having a great base? Who can argue with logic? Who can argue with efficiency? Mother of skills, repetition. Who can argue with repetition? Who can argue with the laws of physics? Lombardi writes that. Be brilliant with basics. Drill the core fundamentals countless times to excel in any aspect of life. Winding down with great paper that Jake submitted. And this is just out of nowhere, just on his own. He sends it to me. It just kind of stopped me in my tracks. Drill the core fundamentals countless times to excel in any aspect of life. Then he writes, Mind Vitamin by Steve Prefontaine, the runner. No matter how hard you train, somebody will train harder. No matter how hard you run, somebody will run harder. No matter how hard you want it, somebody will want it more. And I am somebody. Pretty good.
Yeah, I love that.
Steve Prefontaine.
You want to tell everybody who that is, Steve? There may be some that aren't familiar with Prefontaine.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to do that. Well, back in the day in America, before a coach would know your last name, he would know what you ran the mile in. And Steve Prefontaine, he died at age 24, but he always wanted to run from the front. There was 2 movies made on Prefontaine, but yeah, people should Google. People should know Steve Prefontaine. Occasionally, you see a Nike T-shirt that just says "Pre." Um, but talk about character. Yeah, it matters. Somebody will want it more, and I am somebody. That's good. He thanks Jensen Rideout, Jacob Hansen, and Joseph Venoza, who are people that follow the curriculum we have out in Salt Lake. But thank you, Jake Gregory. I think that's a powerful start for if we could just do follow those 10 lessons for the year 2026. Why don't you say
Yeah, incredible.
why don't you say a few things about New Year's resolutions?
Yeah, I think it's hard to believe a year's passed. We had gone through a handful of them for players, parents, coaches last year. I think that this year my approach is going to be a lot simpler. I'm not going to flock shoot. I think we made lists of 10 last year, and I'm going to try to narrow it down and just hit 2 or 3 things inside of areas of my own life and then inside of players, and try to really hit them and run with them and just make an impact.
I missed that. It was a North Dakota term. You're not going to what? Flock?
Flock shoot, yeah.
Flock shoot. What's flock shoot?
Well, yeah. So we were in a major flyway for duck and goose, the path of them coming down from the north and Canada as they migrated south during the winter months, the cold weather. And so we just have huge, huge flocks of duck and geese come over. And, on snowy days, it was the best day to hunt. So there were a lot of snowy days that I had a sore throat and we were out hunting. And during school, just skipping school, in other words, my dad would let us go and he'd take us out hunting. And he was an expert marksman, so he could really hit anything on a dime. And my brother and I, we just kind of pull up and shoot and never hit with the same efficiency because we figured we're aiming right into this big flock of ducks flying right over our head. We got to hit something, but as we found out, you got to be more efficient. You got to be very specific in your target. Pick one out, even though there might be 30 flying over. You pick one, you lead it by a few feet and pull. I think it's kind of like New Year's resolution goals. And going back to Jake's comments, gosh, I mean, I'd written down some things, but maybe it's just as simple as attitude and effort. Maybe gratitude, attitude, and effort. Making those 3 things the precision shots that we aim for, rather than flock shooting and trying to attempt a bunch of different things.
Make a comment on it. It's interesting. You hear people say something. So obviously you mean geese, right? So, but duck, goose. When you said
duck and geese, yeah. Did I say goose?
Yeah, but just think about where that comes from. Is that so? You hear people say something, and it's brain memory, but that's just gone away. Duck, goose. You have kids sit in a circle, and you just go around and you tap each kid, duck, and then you say goose, and then you just take off running. The goose gets up and chases you. And if they catch you before you get back to their spot, you lose. And I've been chased by a goose, but those things have gone away. I did this today with just a small group of players. I said, all right, an older player, put him on just 2 courts, and he's on corner of the first court, and then on the far corner of just tier 2 courts, just 2 tennis courts. So you follow me as listeners. So one kid's in one corner, then the opposite corner of the second court. And I said, see if you can run 4 laps. That's your goal. Run 4 laps before he passes you. So it's an older junior, 14, 15. The other players, 10, 12. And it is exhausting. So then it's 2 courts. And then you say, okay, now 1 court. And that comes from duck, goose. And I think things like that have gone away, as those type of games are not played anymore. Tell me about Sabalenka and Kyrgios.
Well, I mean, they use the word battle of the sexes, and Kyrgios, they were both limited to 1 serve. It was held today, 10 a.m. live, Sabalenka's court. that she had to defend was radically reduced in width and length. I believe she lost 4 feet of distance, or Kyrgios could. So, instead of the 39 feet, I think she was looking at just over 35 feet on her side. And then she, I think, was trimmed up about 1.5 feet roughly. I may be off slightly on each sideline. So instead of the 27 feet, it was 24-ish. So it was a pretty narrow area. Like many exhibitions, it had some moments where it displayed a little bit more intensity, but I almost felt like they should have left the length of her court. I think it almost went against her a little bit, to be honest with you.
So could you review that? They shortened the court both ways, the width and the length?
Yeah. I didn't realize they did the length of it as well on her side. So from the net to the baseline, it went from 39 feet to I think 37, 36. I'd have to check. I got online today and checked the dimensions just to see what they had done completely, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was pretty significant off the baseline. A few feet here and there, maybe 3.
Was it good theater? Were there a lot of people watching?
It's funny because you can't tell. I've spoke, over there where it was held, and it seemed like it was probably good for tennis. I've spoke to Ashlyn about her time over there in the Middle East playing, and she said that, so many times it's just empty and people are just kind of drug off the street and put in there to make it appear like it was a really high functioning event. So I don't know how well it was received. I am curious to see what, people's take is on it overall. It certainly didn't have the feel of the Riggs and Billie Jean. I think, that about it, Steve, and the Martina Navratilova, Jimmy Connors match. That was a similar matchup out in Vegas that kids can go out, people can watch on YouTube. I would put it third in terms of having watched all 3 of those. I'd put, the Kings and Rigg first, Connors, Navratilova second, and it's probably just a little bit in third. And I'm sure there's been others, but those are the 3 I think of.
Actually, 1973, Billie Jean King, of course, a different time, and women weren't really given a fair shake. Shortly after Title IX, it's so much better for women now. It's just not even comparable to days gone by. But Dennis Vandermeer was coaching Billie Jean King. Jason Morton was the umpire in the chair. But one thing about Bobby is he was totally exhausted. He was actually hustling matches that morning. He was just too confident. He's just too confident. And, King was really well coached. I mean, she was such a great player, but she really dictated play. And he said afterwards, he thought he was going to keep it going. He thought he was going to roll through Billie Jean and then play Chrissy. Her win put a stop to it. Jimmy, you could read in his autobiography where and then Bobby Riggs had put a lot of money on it, so he was really nervous because Jimmy, I can't remember in his book, he said he himself was going to lose quite a bit of money if he lost more than 6 games, so he planned on winning at least 6-3, 6-3. But very quickly he got down, and it's a great lesson for people that he said, I'm not missing. I'm putting everything up the middle, and I'm not coming in unless it's a sure thing. That's why he's such a great player.
Martina had doubles alleys, didn't she, in that one?
Yeah. Then, with, Kyrgios got such a great serve, and you can't take anything away from Sabalenka, but if you just think about what Billie Jean King won and Bobby Riggs won, I think it was 39 where he won the triple at Wimbledon. And then the war broke out. I remember, I'm pretty sure, I bet it was 1939, is that he was nervous. He won all his money betting on himself back in the day. In Great Britain, you could do that. And he didn't know if the money would still be there because of the war, but it was. But Kyrgios, I mean, he's a personality, but he doesn't have the pedigree of Sabalenka does because of what she's won. Mm-hmm. I think for the new year, the Australian's coming up, but for me, I would say one thing for myself is mark it down. If you're going to get in the pool to work out, you're going to go to the gym, just like anyone. I've got my 2026 day planner. But I think it would be a very good thing for the parents of junior tennis players that are listening, is just mark it down. If we tell you to do a mirror routine, do you do it 365 days? You can't always be in front of a mirror, but you can always find 48 seconds. You don't always have a tennis racket in your hand, but you can find 48 seconds. People don't do it. Just mark it down. We tell people minimum. This comes from Jack Kramer. Skip rope, 3 minutes on, 1 minute off. And that 1 minute, Kramer would just rest because he'd go hard for those 3 minutes. If you go hard for those 3 minutes, you just need to rest. A minute goes by really fast. It comes from boxing. You do 15 rounds. And I've always told people, if I could just see it on your sleeve, or better yet, over your heart, and the number represented the percentage of times that you've done that. And, we can go back, say, okay, we met you on this date. This is when you started with us. So it's just simple math. Okay, we've known you this many days. How many days have you done the 12-minute routine? I get kids that look me in the eye. I was meeting with two sisters the other day, and they have one of those portable backboards. And one girl looked me in the eye. Yes or no? You use the backboard. Yes, use the backboard. No. Most kids won't lie to you. Say, look me in the eye. Answer this question. Yes or no? And then the sister's hitting it 3 times a week. And the thing is that the parents go like, I really appreciate you saying that, because they were thinking that the sister's hitting it 3 times a week is working really hard, but they're just compared to the sister's not using it at all. But for me, it just, that would be something I want to do during this upcoming year, is just mark it down. Make simple routines. Practice what you preach. You tell juniors all the time to just mark it down. But as the new year comes around, Australian Open, what are you predicting for the Australian Open?
Well, I love it. It's a tiring couple of weeks, right? Because we are so off on the times. I know I seem to require more sleep than you, Steve, but I try to do the best I can watching what I can in the evenings or early mornings. And gosh, he always seems to produce some great tennis. Maybe it's because to some degree the people are as fresh as they're going to be ever again, right? Until they get a little bit of an off season. I think if I had to predict winners, I wouldn't really be going out on a limb too far. I would pick Sinner again on the men's side to get to 3 there, and then I would put Sabalenka at the top of the women's. I'm hoping, obviously, for Ashlyn Kruger to have a great run down in Australia this year. Got to be in her corner more than anyone's, really, just from emotional side. But I think those 2 people are on the men's and women's games they would be at the top of my list.
How old is Ashlyn now?
21, turns 22 in May.
Yeah, I would have guessed 24. She's so young still.
Yeah, very young.
She's ball so well. I just think that if she could just play a little different tactically, be a little more aggressive, a little closer to the baseline, a few more net appearances, because the margins are so close. She's obviously, top 40 in the world?
Yeah, got up to 29, now in the top, mid 40s now, probably, heading into the new year.
Yeah, I think also the new year is that it would be great to see her play doubles. Because if she had continued to play doubles the way she did when she was really young, then in the practice sets too, is that just occasionally a body serve, green light point, you're up by 2 or more points. She has the tools to take a second serve and come in. But if you haven't been doing it, you haven't been doing it. This is one thing I think about the Australian Open, and we tease you. Andy Fitzell's been on the line. Andy, who started our podcast, that I went through the USTA High Performance program, and it was during the Australian Open. It was Lake Nona. I have to. Anybody who was there knows I fell asleep too many lectures. It's like, well, I'm not coaching tomorrow. I'm just going to be listening, and I fell asleep, and I apologize to anybody who was speaking during that. I think another thing, Craig Tiley, I think that the rumor mill is going to turn into a truism that he's going to get a great send-off before he comes to the U.S. I think that the marketing side is, anybody in his position who works that hard, work that long, say, well, yeah, I'll start to work for the USTA. But I was told they wanted him January 1. He wants to come after the Australian Open. It'd be interesting to see if that unfolds. But, that job, it's such a big company. And I understand, I mean, you just know what you read, and I'm not sure if it's yellow journalism, but the amount of money listed that they're going to spend to renovate Flushing Meadows is $800 million. Like, wow. I mean, that's
a big chunk. I think it makes about in excess of 600 annually now.
But, the pay grade, wow. I would think that, Eric Buterak, who's the new tournament director, I think Tyler would want to come in as the executive tournament director.
Mm-hmm.
I think he would want to have the same footprint. And I also was told that he's, seeing if he can bring in his own executive staff. But that'll be interesting. With Sabalenka, I think Sabalenka does really well when it comes down to being self-critical. I know that one U.S. Open where she lost to Coco Gauff, and she just openly said my volleys were so bad, and they go back to work. But what a big, powerful game. But she's dictating play. It's like when Richard Williams. The girls are 15 months apart, and the older daughter, Venus, she was winning left and right in Southern California, but she didn't play any tournaments after the age of 10. She didn't play any junior tournaments. And, Richard figured out that, you got to play a big game. And, they basically made people improve their serves because they made the return to serve home run derby. Like Hingis was a great player, but both Venus and Serena just stood up and said, okay, I'm going to force off the return. That's where tennis, does improve. The game does evolve, but the game does get better in many ways. Somebody who you and I worked with, but, he was a great player before we had anything to do with him, was Vince Spadia. Vince Spadia got to be 19 in the world. I have film of us trying to, teach Vince to not run around a backhand volley up at the net. But such short, compact ground strokes. And, Robbie Seguza who has a lifetime in tennis. He was, running that academy, and then, he got involved in coaching Vince. But Vince was 19 in the world. And this is a great player, 19 in the world. He also went on a bad run one time where he lost 19 times in the first round. But I read where he said, there's many things we can learn by going backwards. It's kind of like your line theme, the movie, Back to the Future.
Yeah.
But it is a celebration. I mean, I always tell people the tennis world, we have 4 Super Bowls. And, it really is exciting that every time a major rolls around. And I think we get a little bit confused by the excitement of the 4 majors, and then don't stop and really think about what's happening at the grassroots level. There's always going to be players at the top to fill those courts. There's always going to be, excellent tennis players. But to have the sport of pickleball, for example, it has its positives, but it's wiffle ball. There's baseball, there's softball, there's wiffle ball. And it's like, well, it's easier. The way people go about tennis, we lose too many people to tennis because they don't start with, establishing, building the foundation.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'll go through with my staff. And I think just as coaches, we need to, get more excited to teach every level of play. Adults, kids, beginning, advanced, it doesn't matter. We just need to get excited to teach all levels. And because we gotta start recruiting more and more players to the game and retaining them, going back out and getting our former players that we've lost to the game. And tennis needs an all-out initiative right now to really strengthen it and get it back on its feet. And I think the coaches in the profession, I mean, it's our job, it's our responsibility to make that happen.
Our summer home for the last 3 years is a beautiful place up in the mountains, Winter Green, Virginia. longtime associate, started off as a student, Ryan Fleming, is the tennis director. Someone was visiting today who was just recently at Wintergreen and said that, he's doing a great job merging the two sports. I mean, the ready position is a ready position. I really think that tennis people should step up and saying that instead of saying, I'm an expert in pickleball, pickleball is so different. I've said it many times in this podcast, like Sam Querrey, if you know tennis, you know 90% of what you need to know in pickleball. But yeah, it's at this stage right now, if you can't beat them, join them. And I think tennis players could bolster tennis by playing pickleball and say, okay, I'm not going to be negative towards pickleball, but I'm going to use my tennis skills and just have pickleball be an extra. Kids do get a chance. Obviously, you and I are in the kid business for the most part. They get a chance to hit some of those emergency shots, to say the reverse overhead. The ball gets behind you, and but what's amazing to me is when you have tennis kids play pickleball, they throw their tennis skills out the window. Just throw them out the window. It's like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
It's like with ping pong. I told a family the other day, I said, if you have space, get a ping pong table, lay it this way where let the ball hit the ground. It hits the table, then hits the ground, and then you play. Make that a game. And, I told someone else, kids from Canada, for example, or, up north, Chicago, Minneapolis, is just get a ping pong paddle and just somewhere, like say in your basement, is just find a section of the wall where you can hit a forehand, backhand, and don't break the ping pong ball. Just move your feet and just touch it at the contact point. The best tennis players in the world, if people study the history of the game, they come from where there's the least amount of court availability. Like here in Florida, for example, it's really amazing that, there's certainly Jim Courier, Chrissy Everett. There's great players that were born and raised in Florida, but most of the great players migrated to Florida. They became very good elsewhere, and they came here for the sunshine.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell us, and we'll sign off here. How many coaches at Brookhaven?
I don't have the exact number. It's either 25 or 26. And 20, I think 27 we have one full-time pickleball pro, Ben Paquette, does an amazing job. You talk about a guy that just, beats the bushes to get people out to the sport. And boy, it's motivating for me to be around him. He's in his mid-40s. He had a change of career, and he was kind of one of the initial people involved in it, and very well respected in the industry now of that racket sport. But the guy is just nonstop promoting, nonstop teaching. He teaches constantly. And I don't mean teaches just like hours. He does that too, but he's constantly teaching when he's teaching. Really fun to be, he's directly behind me on the court that I'm always on. So I hear him, and, the guy is just going. What a great teacher I bet he could teach anything. If he just got his hands on the curriculum and studied it, he'd be excellent at any sport.
No, I think what you said is so true, is that if you have the spirit, if you have the passion, that's just a pure teacher. Then, you just need to get a handle on the information, and the expression, you can teach anything. How do people work at Brookhaven? I know I sent a lot of people. You told me, young player I had the opportunity to work with in Hawaii recently. He's out at your place. Great kid. Much better tennis player than he allows himself to be. Much better tennis player than he thinks he is. There's a positive to that. But so how does someone, again, a mother-daughter community, they've been to Brookhaven. So how does someone get in touch with you? How does someone work at Brookhaven? A guest, a visitor.
Oh yeah, they can just. I'm happy to share my cell phone right here if you want. We have an Instagram account, and they could DM that account. I try to get back with everybody on that. I was really excited because Minot High Tennis, where I spent my youth, a couple of people reached out to me from that high school, and they made it out of Minot and they're going to go play college tennis and they're going to come down here. I told them anybody coming out of Minot, North Dakota gets to come to the academy for free. And, yeah, so I just got off the phone with them this afternoon, but they just reached out through the Instagram. But again, I share my cell phone with everybody. So, if you reach out to me on that, I'll give you my cell. And we have boarding that's at a local, the boy from Hawaii is staying with the local family that's walking distance from the court, and they take care of the room and board. And yeah, it's a fun place to hit balls and learn. And, there's somebody here, no matter what level you are, that can beat you. So there's always humility around every corner, and a great staff. When I was up there today, Gary Alpert, who was pumping out balls on one of the courts where I was with my grandkids. Gosh, he goes back before I do with Steve. So he's got a lifetime in the system. Just a great group of people. Everybody kind of brings something special on, to the table. There's a lot of good coaches. So,
and for our first-time listeners, Brookhaven Country Club, Dallas, Texas, it's like a tennis city unto itself. It's an amazing place, and you're 31, 32 years in, so
32 and a half. Yeah, I'm October 11th. I entered into year 33.
Yeah, I understand if you work there 35 years, they're going to buy you a toupee.
Yeah. I have a young guy I'm working with. I told him, I said, I'm going to have you and I reach out to his family because he was on his way back to Turkey. And the Turkish hair transplants are in right now. We could get both get hair, Steve, for about $5,000 each. And we'd walk into the next workshop with full heads of hair.
Are you teasing that somebody is going to Turkey to get a hair transplant?
Well, no, I'm working with this boy that's from Turkey. He's playing at Collin College now, and I was talking to him about it. But I do know somebody who actually did it, this year. So, yeah, I don't think I like having no option.
Maybe I'll get that done and change my name to Samson.
Yeah, there you go.
Strength is in the hair. Well, listeners, I hope you got some gems out of this. We call it the tennis treasure chest, golden nuggets. One is Jake Gregory. Thank you for sending. It's appropriate that when he sent it to us, I think that was a good read for everyone who is rolling in, like all of us, to the new year.
Yeah.
For you, Dave, your family, your staff, all your students, Happy New Year. Our listeners, Happy New Year. And we'll continue to try to help people through delivering free content, tennis
Sounds
education.
Great.
All right.
2026. Here we go.
All right. Adios, amigos.
All right. See you later.
Yeah, good night. Thank you, everybody.